Do I have any college football fans in here? Yeah, I see quite a few. Awesome. Quentin, I figured you were for sure. I've always wondered what it would be like to be a freshman football player playing your first college home game, and you come out of the tunnel and onto the field for the first time. Can you imagine what that would feel like? Can you imagine the emotions, the adrenaline rush that you'd get as you saw the crowd, as you heard the roar of the fans as they're cheering you on? I got to think that must be just, oh, so cool. Well, that's the picture that God uses here in Hebrews chapter 12. That there are participants in some sort of athletic events, probably a track meet, and they're down on the field, and they're surrounded by fans who are cheering them on. Well, who are those fans who are cheering them on? To understand that, to understand who that great cloud of witnesses is, we need to glance back to chapter 11. Chapter 11 is what's called the Heroes of Faith chapter in the Bible. It goes through this long list of Old Testament believers who are wonderful examples for us in our life of faith. So it talks about Noah, who built the ark so that he and his family could be saved from the worldwide flood. It talks about Abraham, who left his homeland and his country and his family to go to a land that God had promised to show him. Talked about that last week, didn't we? Talks about people like Gideon and Moses and Joshua and the three men in the fiery furnace, and Samson, and Rahab the prostitute. Yes, Rahab the prostitute is listed as a hero of faith. Wow, that gives us some hope, doesn't it? For sure. And now the writer to the Hebrews is kind of urging us to think, here we are, we're on the field, we're running the race, we're the football players, if you will, in the football game. And up in the stands are all these amazing heroes of faith from the past. And what they're doing is they're saying to you and me, you can do this. You can run this race. You've got this. Man, you're doing fantastic. I'm going to mix metaphors today to go back to the football analogy and now to switch from college to pro. Are you with me? Imagine that you're running onto the field at Lambeau Field for the very first time. And up in the stands is Reggie White and Brett Favre and Bart Starr and Curly Lambeau and Don Hudson and Forrest Gregg and Jerry Kramer and Leroy Butler. Do you think you might be a little bit motivated to do your best? You think you might be a little bit motivated to go all out to give it everything you got? Oh, I'm thinking. We are in the race of all races. The race to heaven. The outcome of this race is ultimately the only outcome that matters. If we lose this race, we go to hell. If we win this race, then we go to heaven. My brothers and sisters, the stakes are the highest. Who's up in the stands cheering you on? Moses and King David and Isaiah and Jeremiah and Peter, James and John, Mary and Joseph. You read through that hero of faith chapter, and one after the other, it's wow, 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 wow. These guys were great. These gals were amazing. Did incredible things for the Lord and did incredible things in salvation. And yet, almost every one of them has something written about them where they messed it up horribly. And so maybe it's with that thought in mind that the writer to the Hebrews goes on to say, since we're surrounded by that great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off the sin that so easily entangles. And let's get rid of every burden that burdens us in our race. Can you imagine a sprinter who would pick up a couple of 10-pound dumbbells and run the sprint? He wouldn't do that. Can you imagine a sprinter who dressed like I'm dressed and would try to run the sprint with the long robot? You aren't going to do that. You want to have no burdens. You want to have nothing that could tangle you up. And so guess what the devil does? He tries to burden us and tangle us with every kind of temptation and sin that he can imagine. How often you and I get tangled up by focusing too much on the things of this earth, or the blessings we don't have instead of the blessings we have, or on that disagreement that we had with somebody, or how somebody else is seemingly more blessed than we are and has more talents than we are, or how we have more talents than someone else. Pride, anger, fear, lust, greed. How often don't all of those things tangle us up and hinder us on our run, our race of faith? So what does the author urge us to do? He says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. Why? Because Jesus ran the race that you and I could never, ever run. Jesus was absolutely perfect. Jesus never got tangled up in any of the stuff that tangles us up. Never, ever, not one time, not once. Instead, he ran the race perfectly. And yet, what did he do then? He then endured the cross, scorning its shame. Can you imagine? And why did he do that? We're told he did that for the joy set before him. What was the joy set before him? Commentators are kind of all over the board on this, but I think the best explanation of it is simply this: that he couldn't wait to welcome you into life eternal. Can you imagine? The almighty ruler of the universe said, it is going to be an awesome day when I welcome you into heaven. And because that is going to be such an awesome day, I'm willing to endure the cross. I'm willing to scorn its shame. Because I want you to enter life eternal. And so I'm willing to go to the cross, and I'm willing to win forgiveness for you. I'm willing to die for you, and I'm going to rise for you so that you can know that you are mine, and that you are going to live with me forever and ever. And what happens when we fix our eyes on Jesus? We're refreshed and renewed, aren't we? We're reminded, I've got a God who loves me dearly. We're reminded that heaven is our ultimate home and everything about this earth finally kind of doesn't really matter, because I am but a stranger here. I'm reminded that my God is on my side. And if my God is on my side, He will strengthen me to do whatever it is that needs to be done. Because He's promised to be with me always to the very end of the age. I'm reminded that my God will make all things work together for good, because He's promised to do that. And He's told me that He rules all things for the good of His church. I'm part of that church. And so He's going to make all things work together for my good. And my energy is renewed. And every one of us needs to hear that. Amen? But might I suggest to our teachers, and particularly to our new teachers, that you and I maybe need to hear it even more than anybody else. Because God promises that the work of ministry will be hard. There's a little hint to it in our text. I'll give you a peek behind the Wizard of Oz's curtain take a look at the Greek. The word that's translated race, run the race with perseverance. The word that's translated race is the Greek word agona. We get our English word agony from that Greek word agona. So as God is talking about the race, He's probably not talking about merely a sprint. He's talking about a marathon. Have you seen people cross the finish line in marathons? So often they are stumbling across. Sometimes they become incoherent because they're in agony. There are going to be times, my fellow called workers and my fellow Christians, where the race of faith will feel like agony. That's the truth. But you and I are going to fix our eyes on Jesus, because He is the author and perfecter of our faith, and who for the joy set before Him was willing to endure the cross for you and for me. And when those days of agony and challenge come, it's so important that we hear the voices of those surrounding us witnesses, those Old Testament heroes of faith. Can you hear Noah? God had me build an ark. I caught all kinds of grief for that, was made fun of over and over and over again. And you know what? It's okay. You can do this. You're doing great. There's Abraham. He says to you, God called me to leave my family and leave my homeland. And it was hard. But God strengthened me to do it. You can do this. You're in the race. You're running great. There's Rahab. I had to sell my body. I was a prostitute until I met the Israelites, and through the Israelites I met God. And I can't tell you what a treasure that was. And now I'm in heaven. It was oh so worth it. This is oh so worth it. Moses, David, the three men, Peter, James, and John, the Apostle Paul. I was put to death. I was put to death for my faith. And I would do it all over again, because heaven is amazing. You're in the race now. It's your turn now. Run that race with perseverance. And most importantly, hear the voice of Jesus, who says to you, you are my dear son. You are my dear daughter. I've put you on the playing field at this specific time because you are the perfect person to run the race of faith right now. The baton which was started with Adam and Eve and handed down through the years and passed through Mary and Joseph and Peter, James, and John, and through the New Testament times, that baton of faith has now been handed to you and to me. It's our turn now. And my prayer is that we are going to run this race with perseverance and with strength and determination, because we are going to fix our eyes on Jesus, who authored and perfected our faith. And I pray that Christians long after us will say, these people were heroes of faith too. Amen? Amen. And amen.